Welcome back to ManaTutor MTG Draft. Today we're going to be going over the blue commons and uncommons. If you haven't seen our other videos already, be sure to check out lands and artifacts where we go over a grading scale, but in this we will continue grading the Lord of the Rings draft review, doing a full set review, and we're starting off with the blue commons, mana cost 1, all the way through to the max mana cost. Up first, we have Birthday Escape. For 1 blue mana, you get a sorcery with draw a card. The ring tempts you. A straightforward card. I like this one quite a bit. It's not a high pick because it is a 1 mana do kind of nothing. Draw a card, ring tempts you. But we saw a lot of synergies with the sorcery and instants being in your graveyard, and also with draw a card when you draw multiple cards in a given turn. And I like that this kind of, first of all, is a cheap ring tempt and allows you to play less cards in your deck type of effect. So with all that, I like this as I have this as a synergy C minus. I think it kind of goes into, even without the synergy, probably about a C minus. The synergy was if you have the draw 2 cards in a turn, it gets a little bit better. But I think in general, regardless, it's a C minus in my mind. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I like it a little less than you because it is basically pay 1 mana to do nothing. I mean, yes, there's a ring temp on there, but there are, I think, enough cards with ring temp that I'm not sure having this is needed. So I have it at a D plus, but I can totally understand. Like you said, if you have something that synergizes well with drawing cards, then you may want to pick up a few of these. In those cases, though, it's probably more a later gameplay when you've already got out your creature that benefits from drawing your second card every turn or something like that. In which case, you're not going to want to play this generally turn 1. You could, like, if you have it and you want to get a free ring tempt in, but yeah, I think I like it a little less overall, so I'm happy with a D plus.
Yeah, I think that's why I was trying to remember. I graded these several days ago, right? Why I put the synergy in front of the C minus. I think it's for that reason. I actually do think this is a D plus, but with if you're in blue red, you're gonna want it more because it's a spells thing.
Yeah.
And with that, the synergy C minus is there. So leave me at synergy C minus, but I would agree with you. Outside of that, it's about a D plus.
Yeah. Next up, we have Deceive the Messenger. For 1 blue, you get an instant that gives target creature -3/-0 until end of turn, and amass orcs 1. And so I think this is okay. It's the -3/-0 is basically a way to prevent yourself from getting hit from something for one turn, and you get a 1/1 out of it, or you get to give your +1/+1 to your existing army. I don't think it's super great. I think it is basically a good filler, I would call it. So I have it at a D plus as well.
Okay, yeah, I have it at a C minus. It is in a way a 1 mana +1/+1 trick on your orc, or a 1 mana 1/1 with upside of making something -3/-0. I do kind of like the fact that you could double block an attacker and save your stuff and kill something with it all for 1 mana and still get a 1/1 out of it, or a +1/+1. So that's why I'm at the C minus, but I essentially agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. I don't think it's a high pick, regardless. I could see this as, and I think I originally had it as a C minus, and then after reading kind of the rest of the blue commons, I was like, there's a lot of better cards here, so I felt kind of needed to draw this one down a little bit. But yeah, I think it's in that range, right? It's very borderline as filler or like a low playable, something like that.
Yep. Up next, we have Bewitching Leechcraft. For 1 blue, you get Enchantment Aura, enchant creature. When Bewitching Leechcraft enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature. Enchanted creature has, if this creature would untap during your untap step, remove a +1/+1 counter from it instead. If you do, untap it. Yeah, blue has some kind of removal. Yes, this taps something down. You can play it if you're desperate for removal, but that's about the only time I would play it. I have this as a D. I really don't like these cards. I'll admit that sounds a little bit low. I'm going to come up to a D plus reading through this again. But what do you think?
I actually really like this card, and I think it's good cheap removal, right? In a lot of ways. I mean, there's not a lot of enchantment hate in the set. So once it's out there, the odds that it's going to go away without the creature going away are, I think, fairly low. It takes out a ring bearer, right? It basically, you put it on their ring bearer, they're kind of stuck with it, right? Until the ring tempts them again. I think it's, I actually really like this, and I put it at a C+. But I may be overestimating it. I just think it's 2 mana to basically neuter a creature, and it makes it's better than the one in black that gives it minus, what was it, minus three, -0.
Yeah.
0, and then they have to pay life or sacrifice it, because this one they don't even have the option of sacrificing it. It's just there, and it can't do anything because it's tapped and can't untap unless it's. You wouldn't put this on a creature that had counters, I think. You just want to put this on something that somebody had, and just basically it's like a pacify. It can't do anything. It's even better than a pacify in my mind, because it taps it and it doesn't even let them untap it to use its abilities, its tap abilities. So yeah, I think it's really good, but I may be overrating it.
Yeah, these kind of enchantment effects tend to not play great in limited, but that does depend on how much like sack type of things. Like, so opponent could sack it and get some kind of value out of it anyway, right? Is the thing. There isn't a ton of that though in here. That makes sense to me. Yeah, you're talking me up, but I'm still on the low end of playable on this. I'm gonna go to a C- on it.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, and like I said, I may well be overrating it. I like the card. I think it's decent removal and better than things like Deceive the Messenger in my mind.
Yep.
So next up we have Glorious Gail. For 1 colorless and 1 blue, you get an instant that's counter target creature spell. If it was a legendary spell, the ring tempts you. So I love this card. I think it's fantastic for as far as counters go. It's a 2 mana counter. There's a lot of legendary creatures, so the odds of you getting a ring tempt off of it are great. But I mean, it's great even if you can just spend 2 mana to prevent your opponent from getting a creature that they want out on the board. So I actually have this as a B-. I think this would draw me into blue.
Yeah, it doesn't quite draw me into blue. Counter spells still require the timing to be right with the mana open type of thing, but sure. I agree. I like this card a lot. This is Essence Scatter with upside. I like it as C+.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, not much difference, right? But I would look at this and yeah, I mean, it wouldn't always draw me into blue, but I could see situations where I'd be like, yeah, you know what? I feel like playing counters, and I got one early. Let's do it. Let's go for it.
Yeah, they're doing a lot to make counters more playable and limited recently. In this set, there's a lot of good playable counters. I think we'll see that as we go on through, especially into the uncommons. But
yeah.
Up next, we have Hithling Knots. For 1 and a blue, you get an instant. Tap target creature, scry 1, draw a card. Not a high pick, but it's a role player in the scry and draw 2. I have this as a Synergy C-. Again, for if you want instants and sorceries, or scry, or draw 2. Otherwise, this might go down to like a D+, but Synergy C-.
Yeah, I just have it as a straight C-, because I think if you're playing blue, you're probably playing one of those strategies, either the double draw strategy or the scry strategy. And so I also just like that I like almost any card that is scry 1 and then draw, because you get to choose that card, right? If you get to see it and you like it, great. If you don't like it, then you roll the dice and take what's next. But I like cards like that, and the tap target creature is nice. It's basically going to neuter a creature for a turn, and that can come in handy. I think it's playable overall in blue, but I agree it would not be my highest pick. All right. Next up, we have Nimrodel Watcher. Costs 1 colorless and 1 blue. For that, you get a 2/1 Elf Scout. Whenever you scry, Nimrodel Watcher gets +1/+0 until end of turn and can't be blocked this turn. This ability triggers only once per turn. I think this is one of those ones, right, where yeah, you kind of have to be playing Scry for it to be super useful. Otherwise it's basically just a 2/1. And in those situations, I would probably put it on the either lower end of playable or high end of filler. I erred on the lower end of playable, just assuming that Scry was going to probably be a fairly prominent mechanic for blue, so I put it at a C-. What do you think?
Yeah, completely agree. Exactly what you said. I have Synergy C, and then in my notes, I have C minus D plus borderline, which is exactly what you said. So, yeah, I tend to like I if I had to pick like a non synergy grade, I'd probably go C minus. I tend to like my 2 mana 2/1s. Mostly because I like 2 mana cards, but they are in the nearing that filler range, admittedly. So we have Pelargir Survivor, 1 and a blue for a 1/3 human peasant creature. Tap to add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast an instant or sorcery spell. 5 and a tap. Target player mills 3 cards. I just put this at D plus. No real notes. The instants and sorcerers are definitely a thing in blue, especially in blue red. So I think it's a serviceable mana dork, but I'm not in love with mana dorks that specifically apply to instants and sorceries. What do you think?
Yeah, I have this actually as a D. I think I agree with basically everything you said. I think it's serviceable, but it wouldn't be high on my list. I don't think you're ever, or I think there are very rare situations where you will trigger the 6 mana cost to mill your opponent for 3 cards or yourself for 3 cards. And so yeah, a 1/3 for 2. I mean, 1/3 for 2 isn't terrible. It's not the best though. So yeah, I had it as a straight D.
Yeah, it's fair.
So next up, we have the Soothing of Smeagol. Costs 1 colorless, 1 blue for an instant. Return target non-token creature to its owner's hand and the ring temps. I'm going to be honest, I hate this card. I think it's not very good. I think it's an F. I think, and my notes that I specifically have for it is play Hithlane Knots, Bewitching Leechcraft, or Glorious Gale instead. All of those are better cards. They all do something similar in terms of, taking a creature out of action for a turn. They cost the same, and they just have better effects overall.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I chickened out of giving it an F, but so I gave it a D.
That's fair. I just went for it. I was like, screw it. I'm going to give this one an F because there's so many other cards. There's 3 other cards that cost the same, and in my mind are just better in some way than these.
Unsummon is a 1 mana blue, right, that returns a creature to its
Right.
owner's hand, and that is usually even not that great in limited, but it can be played, and paying twice that amount for it, I mean, it really depends on how much that ring tempts
and
you
you
is.
can't target an army with it. You have to, it's non-token.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think it's bad.
That's
I would not play this card.
Yeah, that's definitely like this would be a lot better if you could if you could target an amassed creature, but it's in no way removal, so it's not good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you're desperate for ring temps, I could see this as a filler, in that circumstance. But there are a lot of ring temp cards, and so I don't think you're going to be forced to take this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about all there is to say about it.
Yeah, go ahead, put me as an F. Just to not to call myself not a chicken. You've given me the courage.
That's fair.
All right. Captain of Umbar. For 2 and a blue, you get a 2/3 human pirate creature. Pay 1 and tap it. Draw a card, then discard a card. This feeds the draw a card strategy. There's that. 2/3 for 3. I'd like better than that. So I think this fits into that filler range, but you'll play it sometimes. Therefore, I'm at a D plus.
Yeah, I have this as a synergy C plus. Because if you're going for that card draw strategy, if you want it, this gives it to you, and it gives you a common that can do it reliably. And so you may want to pick up multiple of them in that case. So I could certainly see it. I think it would certainly be better if it didn't have the pay. If it was just draw a card, discard a card. But even then, I can see it. The thing about the draw card strategy, though, I guess, you know, with the way the second ring temp, you get that draw on your ring bearer. And so I'm not even sure you need separate creatures to do it. So, you know, I may even be talking myself down to like a synergy C here. But like, I think it's decent in those circumstances.
It's definitely not a bad card. Like, I just, with the whole ring temp thing, I don't see it having much of a serviceable place where you really want to be investing 1 mana into doing it. I mean, sometimes you might not have a good attack with your ring bearer or be able to get a ring bearer in the right time, so this is a good backup to that. Like, in some ways, you're talking me up to at least calling this a playable, but I usually want... I expect more from my cards. That's all.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I'll go with a synergy C overall, but yeah, I don't know that I would play this outside of going for the drop strategy.
Yeah, that's fair. Keep me at a D+, but I agree with everything you said.
Yeah. So next up, we have Dreadful as the Storm. It is 2 colorless, 1 blue for an instant. Target creature has base power and toughness 5/5 until end of turn, and the ring tempts you. So this card will win you games sometimes, just because you have the ability to turn a 1/1 into a 5/5, and if your opponent doesn't have the life, this card could win you games. I will probably lose games to this card. That said, I think it's pretty middling and situational. The ring temp on the end is kind of nice, but so I have it at a C.
I'm definitely even lower on this card. I have it as a D. Yes, sometimes it is destroy a creature, and sometimes it is, get enough damage to win the game, but it doesn't do enough for 3 mana. You want to be doing other things to do both of those, to kill something or to win the game. So I don't really see a great reason to play this unless you literally have nothing to put in your deck, which I define as filler. So, yeah, I'm sticking with a D.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think I like it a little more than that, but we'll see. I mean, it may be one of those things that doesn't turn out to be as useful as I think it is, but I'm going to at least stick with a C to start. I mean, I don't think I'd put this high on the list, but I think it is something that I would probably play 1 or 2 of as a potential finisher, just because it could come in handy.
Often we'll see a card that does something like this for 3 mana, making it a base rate something like a 4/4 or something, and then it tacks on at the end, draw a card. This one does not tack that on. I like the other card. Having a ring tempt I don't think is enough, so that's why I'm where I am.
Yeah, that's fair.
Up next we have Greyhaven's Navigator. For 2 to blue. You get a 3/2 elf pilot creature with flash. When Greyhaven's Navigator enters the battlefield, scry 1. I like this card quite a bit. I mean, a 3/2 for 3 is fine. I like the flash, and I like the scry 1. Basically, I have this as a synergy C+. I don't think it quite pulls me into the scry strategy, but... in the scry strategy, it's about a C+, and otherwise, I'd probably put this about like a C-ish. What do you think?
I just have a flat C+ for it. Everything you've said, I agree with. I think it's a good card. I would probably play this even if I wasn't playing scry. Just a flash 3/2 for 3 is not bad. It allows you to surprise your opponent, potentially take something out, and then, see what you're going to draw next on your turn. And then, I think overall it's good. I think I'd play it in most situations, but it's certainly better in the scry mechanic.
Yep.
So next up, we have Aphelian Kingfisher. 2 colorless, 1 blue. For that, you get a 2/1 bird creature with flying, and when Aphelian Kingfisher dies, draw a card. So this is one I was thinking of the other day when I mentioned to you that this set's Inspiring Overseer.
Yep.
It obviously doesn't draw the card when it comes into play. It has to die first. That's not as good, but I still think it's pretty good. And I still think I would play this. So I have it overall as a C.
Okay. I I have this as a C plus. Um, I yeah I C plus is almost like solidly what I would rate this. If not, like part of it makes me want to go to B minus. I don't think it has enough of that though. So but yeah, I like this card quite a bit. It is kind of a Windrake type of thing until you draw your card, but I'm a sucker for these. Even when they die, cards drawing a card, especially when they are
Sure,
3 mana or
replaces
less.
itself, which is nice. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
C plus.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I'm not far off on it. I just, yeah, I don't know that it would all be. I can imagine things that I would take over it that would draw me into a color, but I can definitely see this as a pretty high pick overall.
Yep. All right, Treason of Isengard is up next. For 2 and a blue, you get a sorcery. Put up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library. Amass Orcs 2. You kind of get a 2/2 for 3. You get to pick something that you like, an instant or sorcery on there to put on top of your library, but that means you're not drawing, like, you're just setting up your draw type of thing. So I think
And it's a sorcery, so you're setting up your draw for a while away.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that this is a playable, but I have it on the low end. I think this is a C minus. I think you mostly want to be playing this when you are in like a Spells Matter deck, so it counts as a creature, but otherwise not really. So C minus.
Yeah, I actually have it a little bit lower. I have it at a D plus. I think it's very much that borderline for me of is this filler or is this something that I would take. I think I could see it in one of those Spells Matter situations as a synergy C even, but I think overall, in most cases, I would probably put this as some kind of filler, so I have it at a D plus.
Yep.
All right, next up we have Arwen's Gift. For 3 colorless, 1 blue, you get a sorcery. It costs 1 less to cast if you control 2 or more legendary creatures. Scry 2, then draw 2 cards. I mean, again, I think this is one of those situations where it's definitely important to have either your scry strategy or your draw strategy going on, or both. You know, paying 4 to draw 2 cards is kind of a, I mean, you can certainly find better deals than that, but I do like the fact that it scries first, because then you have the option of saying that you actually don't want that card before you draw it. And so for that, overall, I have this as a C.
Yeah, I have a grade. So just because I don't like to cheat on my grades, I did grade this as a D plus, but I disagree with myself on it. So I'm gonna change it to a C minus. The I don't like to overload my deck with cards like this. Divination itself of pay 3, draw 2 is usually an acceptable like D plus filler type card. I do think this one's better in that the legendary is is going to come up quite a bit, and it is a divination then, but with a scry 2 on top of it. And with that, I think it's within the playable range, so I'm at a C minus.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're pretty close on it, I think.
Yep. Up next, we have Isolation of Ortank. For 3 and a blue, you get an instant. Put target creature into its owner's library, second from the top. I think this is actually the best removal that blue gets. It's instant. This does. People think sometimes like the put something onto your library isn't removal. Like, they're right in that they get to draw it again and play it, but they're not drawing another card. It is a form of removal. It is 4 mana. Blue doesn't get a whole lot of removal. So I have this as a C.
Yeah, I have it lower. I have it at a D, and the reason I have it at a D is because there's all those 2-costers that I like a little bit more than this, because for the same price, I can play 2 of them. And so I'm not sure. Like, I get what you're saying, and I agree, right? It is removable, and it is something that it's going to delay everything else that your opponent draws, because they're going to have to redraw the card that you removed. So I do like that aspect of it. I just think it's too expensive overall, and I would much rather take a Glorious Gale over this and just counter the creature outright. And so for me, I have it at a D. But
yeah, I like getting it off the board more than say like the tapping one, getting it tapped. Although admit yours is half the cost on that one. I like that this is an instant though in blue because you get a lot of flexibility, like doing this on your opponent's turn type of thing and holding up mana. So, but yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right.
All right. Next up, we have the Knights of Dol Amroth. For 3 colorless, 1 blue, you get a 3/3 human knight. And whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it. I think this is a pretty good card. I mean, it's not a 4/4 for 4, but there's a lot of drawing second cards, right? You know, especially with that second ring temp, especially as we talked a lot of, draw card capabilities in blue. And so I have this as a C+.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree here. I have this as a D+. It's there's a lot of draws. Another card. So the turn you put this down, this could maybe become a 4/4 for 4. You'll need your ring bearer in that case. If you don't, you're probably waiting another turn. If it needs some setup even to become a 4/4 for 4, and even then, that's not a great card in my mind for 4, right? Like, so the fact that this needs so much setup over multiple turns before it starts becoming good is why I have this in the filler range.
That's fair. Yeah. No, I mean, I disagree on it. I think it will end up being a pretty good playable card because blue does not have a lot of big creatures, and this is one with the potential to become a big creature. Granted, it doesn't start that way.
Yeah.
But blue just doesn't have a lot of that in general, especially in this set, and so I think it's one of your stronger blue creatures that can maybe go toe to toe with some of the other colors, and that's the reason that I like it.
Yeah, I place a lot of value on how good something is the turn it comes into play, and you'll see this a lot with my rare and mythic grades. A card can be very good over multiple turns, and I will definitely knock it a half a grade or so, or maybe 2 halves a grade, if it doesn't immediately provide me benefit the turn I play it, like the amount of benefit. So same type of reasoning for this card and why I'm lower.
That's fair. Yeah.
Up next, we have Surrounded by Orcs. For 3 and a blue, you get a sorcery with Amass Orcs 3. Then target player mills X cards, where X is the amassed army's power. So I have this as synergy C- because if you catch them all, this might actually do something. But I don't think the milling thing is really where you want to be in this set, and honestly, I mostly am more in the filler range for this card. Otherwise, it's just I think every now and then for somebody that specifically wants to try it, you could try a mill strategy if you see it floating around the table and wheeling, and then you can just catch a bunch of these and try to make the dream happen. But I don't advise it for your win rate. What do you think?
I actually have it lower. I just have it as a straight D-, because even in a synergy like with Amass, there are cheaper Amass cards that get you Amass. And my overall point is if you have an army big enough to mill your opponent to death, you can just beat them to death with that army. And that's more straightforward than relying on a mill strategy. So my overall on this one is just a D-. There are situations where I would take it. It's not completely enough, but I don't love it.
Matt, you got to give the people some hope for the dream. People love to mill people.
I know, but I love the mill is true, but just this conflicts with itself, right? The idea that you're trying to build up this huge army and then use this card to mill 12 cards. Okay, well, you already have 12-12 out on the board. Just hit them with the 12-12.
Yeah, I'm not going for this at all. I basically am rating this personally an F, but I do think, like, people can do the thing. So I'll give them that fish, and I want to hear in the comments who drafted like 5, 6, 7 of these and just went to town and had a good time.
I mean, if you can and you can make it work, great. I just don't think it'll probably lose more than it wins.
It will, yeah. That's there's that disclaimer of that the win rate this will not help your win rate.
Yeah. So next up we have Lorien Revealed. For 3 colorless and 2 blue, you get a sorcery, draw 3 cards, and island cycling. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say I like this card. I mean, I don't love it. I don't like paying 5 to draw 3, but I do like the flexibility of it. I have island cycling if I decide I don't want to pay 5 and draw 3 and I want to land instead. So overall, I have this in the playable range. I was debating between either a C- or a C. I ended up going with the lower one just because it's a sorcery. But I could see an argument to make it a C. So I have it as a C- though.
Yeah, same exact thought, but I went with the C just because of the flexibility, but this would be so much better if it was an instant too. But yeah, I guess I gave it a C.
Yeah.
Up next, we have Willow Wind to close out our commons. For 4 and a blue, you get a 3/4 elemental creature with flying. When Willow Wind enters the battlefield, scry 2. I'll play it if I need higher end filler, otherwise I won't. Tacking Scry 2 onto a card like this is nice, but I have it as a D+. What do you think?
Same grade, same reason. I mean, if I'm playing a Scry deck, I might put this at the lower end of playable just because it's a larger flyer. It's going to potentially help you win in the air at the end. So I could see it going up just a notch if you're going with the Scry strategy, but overall, yeah, I agree with D+.
All right, let's move on to our uncommons.
Yep. All right, so starting next with our uncommons, first up we have Stern Scolding. For 1 blue, you get an instant counter target creature spell with power or toughness 2 or less. I like this card. 1 mana counter. I like that it gives you the flexibility for power or toughness. There are a lot of ring bearer type cards that have power 1, which this is great for. It's going to eat up some legendaries. So I have this at a C+. What about you, Jared?
I have this as a straight B. I think this is the best counter spell I've ever seen in Limited. And it hits 63% of the commons and uncommons. So at a rate of 1 mana to do it, yes, you still have to hold up the 1 mana and time this right, but it's not going to be hard to do. So I just like the straight efficiency on this. And think about, like, there are cases sometimes where your opponent could be playing a 4 mana, even a 5 mana spell. You eating up that mana that they're paying just with 1 of your mana, such a big swing. So I think that deserves a B.
Yeah, you've convinced me on this one, actually. I'm not sure I'll come up to a straight B on it. I definitely think there are things that I see being stronger on it, but I'll at the very least go with a B- to start. And I can imagine being, surprised on the upside with this one. You're absolutely right. I think your statistic for how much that it hits is great. It basically says, yeah, you take this card, you're going to be able to counter more than half the creatures that are likely to come up regularly in your games, and so that's really good.
Yeah, we're not used to seeing a card say power or toughness and do something like, so the stats are a little not always intuitive, and then running the numbers, hitting nearly 2/3 of the creatures for 1 mana is just great.
Yeah. And to be clear, if it was one or the other, power or toughness, I wouldn't like this. I just would not. I would probably pass. I would probably pass on it most times.
Right. A big swing down that would hit something like just above 40% at that point. And that's a big difference, right? Just to be clear, that would pull me into, like, I would still like the card, but it would definitely not be in my pull into blue range.
Yeah.
I'm also a sucker for cheap cards, cheap spells. So, anyway, up next we have Bill Fernie, Bree Swindler. For 1 and a blue, you get a 2/1 human rogue legendary creature. When it becomes blocked, you can choose one, create a treasure token, or target opponent gains control of target horse you control. If they do, remove Bill Fernie from combat and create 3 treasure tokens. 2/1 for 2 is fine. I guess the real bonus you get here is like, okay, when they kill it, when they block it, you can get a treasure token out of it. I like that. It doesn't blow me away. I just think this is playable. I have this as C.
Same rating, same reason. I believe there are 2 horses in the set, one of which is the
Bill
pony.
the pony.
And then Shadowfax, Lord of Horses, which we have not discussed because it's a rare. But, so odds are you're not going to be removing him from combat and giving somebody a horse. But, if you can pull that off, more power to you. But, yeah, I think overall he's a C. So next up, we have Council's Deliberation. For 1 colorless and 1 blue, you get an instant, draw a card, and whenever you scry, if you control an island, you may exile Council's Deliberation from your graveyard. If you do so, draw a card. 2 mana to draw a card, instant speed, and then the option of potentially drawing a second card later on. There's a lot of scry in blue. Odds are you're going to be able to pull that off at some point. So I really like this card. I think it's a C+.
I have the same grade for the same reason. That does assume you have a decent amount of scry in your deck, but in blue you probably do. This might go down to like as low as like a C- if you have only a few scries. But it's pretty efficient when you have a reasonable amount of scry in your deck.
Sure. Yes. Absolutely. If you're absolutely not going to play scry, don't play the card.
Right.
Just and get the what is it? The birthday, the one that's 1 mana and draw a card, and the ring tempts you.
Yeah.
That would be better in that case, right? But
birthday
if you do have a fair amount of scry, birthday escape. That's right. But if you do have a fair amount of scry, or say 4, 5 plus somewhere in your deck, then this is probably going to pay off at some point, and you're going to be able to do that and draw whatever you scry. So it's good, and it also plays into that drawing second card every turn, and it potentially lets you do it twice. So I think that's also a nice mechanic with it.
Yep. Especially when you can time it with your scries too. Like I do think when you can scry, like you probably want to use it right away. If you at all limited on scry. Now, if you're like a complete scry deck, you might decide to hold that off in order to get some other benefit. More than likely,
yeah, you could time it with Knights of Dol Amroth or something, right,
Yeah.
to get that extra counter on it, or something like that.
Yep. Up next, we have Elrond, Lord of Rivendell. For 2 in a blue, you get a 3/2 Elf Noble legendary creature. Whenever it or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. If this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, the ring tempts you. I have this as, I give a lot of synergy grades, especially for the food and the scry. There's a lot of synergy in there. So I did give this synergy B-. I think this is enough to get me to be pulled into the scry strategy. So yeah, that's my grade. What do you think?
I just have this card as a straight B-, actually. I really like it. Scrying on every ECB is just fantastic in my mind. It's going to help set you up, assuming you have a decent tempo and you're playing a creature mostly every turn. You're going to be able to see what's next, possibly set up that next creature, which is going to let you scry again. There's enough cards that combo off of scry that I don't even know that this needs a synergy.
Yep.
I just like the card overall.
Yep.
It's a 2 for 3 that gives you some pretty good abilities. I would never want to attack with it. I would just kind of want to keep it there and let it do its thing. So in that case, like, I'm not sure it's as useful as a creature, but it's, you can still block a 1/1 with it and not have to worry about it too much. But yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, next up we have Yoreth of the Healing House. Costs 2 colorless, 1 blue. For that, you get a 1/4 legendary creature, Human Cleric. You can tap it to untap another target permanent, or tap it to untap 2 other target legendary creatures. You and I may have a difference of opinion on this one, but I really like this card. I think it's really good for the ability to allow you to use other creatures for things, or to attack with something and then untap it, or to tap it and untap 2 other legendary creatures that you may want to do something with. So I have it as a straight B, actually.
Yeah, I do disagree. I just want my card to be able to do more in and of itself, and not have to rely on having good things to untap. So I have this as a C minus. I put the note. There's probably some cool combos with this. Like, I haven't assessed the full range of what this would work with in the set. So note that discovering some of those combos might bring me up in down the road. But I still want my card to do more before I think it's really a draw into blue.
That's fair. And I may be way overrating this. I just think there's going to be a lot of really good situations with it, because we haven't gotten into the rares yet, but there are a lot of rares that are legendary and have tap abilities that do really nice things. And I think, like you said, this is very much one of those combo things, but I like the card a lot. I think it'll end up doing a lot when it comes out.
Yeah, admittedly, this looks like a card. Like, yes, sometimes wizards will print cards that are traps. Like, not every rare is a good card. Not every uncommon's a good card. This one looks like it's not a great card, but it looks like it can do a lot. Like, I feel like I'm probably missing something there, but there's a decent chance I'm not as well. So I guess I'm probably not seeing its potential. But I do like my cards to hold their own, and it doesn't hold its own. That's my concern with it.
Yeah, fair. That said, it is good to block a ring bearer. That's my other note on this one. As a 1/4, you will be able to block almost every ring bearer, and it probably won't die unless you've gotten to that 3rd level of ring MC. So.
Speaking about cards that I think they sometimes put at uncommon when they're not that great, we have Saruman's Trickery. For 1 blue, you get an instant counter target spell, amass orcs 1. I think it's filler. I have this as a D+. I mean, 3 mana counter spells in limited usually are not that great. They had the benefit of tacking on an amass orcs 1, which I think adds my plus on top of my D there, but I still don't really want to play this. What do you think?
Exact same grade, exact same reason. There are better counters in blue. We've talked about 2 of them. Just draft those instead. Give this one a pass. Let the other person who's playing blue in your pod pick it up and, beat them.
Yep.
Although, to be fair, I will say, this is counter any spell, right? So there is some more marginal utility in this than we've talked about with the other ones. This will get an instant. This will get a sorcery. The other ones we've talked about will only grab creatures. So I'll add that, if you're worried about you going up against a deck that's going to be playing instants and sorceries, this might be a better choice for you. But in that case, I think it's a sideboard card to sideboard in for when you sideboard out one of your other counters, because your opponent doesn't have a lot of creatures. So
completely.
So next up, we have Gandalf, Friend of the Shire. For 3 colorless, 1 blue, you get a 2/4 legendary creature avatar wizard with flash. You may cast sorcery spells as though they have flash, and whenever the ring tempts you, if you choose a creature other than Gandalf, Friend of the Shire, as your ring bearer, draw a card. So I'm of 2 minds on this. I really think that last ability is actually very good and is going to be a little underrated. However, at him costing 4, the odds are that you're going to have played some of your ring temps already and not need to play additional ring temps is pretty high. So I'm thinking you may get 1 or 2 additional card draws off of this. The flash is nice. It allows you to bring him in to potentially block a ring bearer or something like that with him as a 2/4. I'm not sure how much the casting sorceries as instants is going to come up. If you're playing a Spells Matter deck, and you've got a lot of sorceries, then something like this might be good. But overall, I put him at the bottom end of playable at a C-. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to you. I have him as a C. I put the note, I can see myself coming up on this after getting some play experience with it, because again, this is one of those kind of strange cards that has high variance on how it could play in the set. But like I was saying before, I tend to like my cards to be good and then have synergy be the cherry on top. Whereas this one is, it's really the synergy is like it's fine, and then their synergy could make it better. And I'd rather it just be a good base rate and synergy be the cherry. So, I landed on C because of that, and I'll be interested in seeing how this plays though.
Yeah.
Up next, we have Menaldor Swift Savior. For 3 and a blue, you get a bird soldier legendary creature with flying. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile up to 1 target creature you own, then return it to the battlefield under your control. This is at least a 4 mana 3/3 flyer. That's decent, but I do like that it has Vigilance too. Effectively, because you could exile it and return it to the battlefield, so it has pseudo vigilance, and it has upside if something was pacifismed or tapped with that blue enchantment, for example. So, I like this card. It's still it doesn't pull me into blue, and I don't necessarily even think this is like even a C plus. So therefore, I landed on C.
Yeah, I have it a little higher. I have it at a C plus.
Yeah.
I agree it doesn't pull me into blue, but I think there are enough things, particularly in other colors that have ETB effects that I would like with this, because this has flying evasion. It's going to hit your opponent more often, and I think when it hits, the ability to exile something and bring it back for an ETB effect every turn, that's going to add up, especially for some of these ETB effects that create tokens or amass or anything else. So I do think that it's going to pay some dividends, or like you said, even if you don't have it, you can just bring it back, right? And then that way you have it as a blocker on your opponent's turn as well. So for that, it's a C plus. But I could certainly see if I had a couple of other cards in my deck that were, had strong ETB effects that I wanted to blink out in and out, then I would definitely even put this into the B range for that. But I'll go with a C plus overall.
Yeah, I definitely think this is dependent on what do you want to blink things. If you do, it goes up for me. So I'm kind of just going off of there's not a whole lot of stuff I really care to blink unless my opponent does something to one of my creatures. In that case, I give it a C. But yeah, I think there's only upside from there.
Yeah, definitely. So next up, we have the Bath Song. Costs 3 colorless, 1 blue. It's a saga. So on the first and second turns with this saga, you draw 2 cards, then discard a card. And on the third turn with this saga, you can shuffle any number of target cards from your graveyard into your library, and you add 2 blue mana. I love this card. I think this is a fantastic card overall. For me, this is one of those rare sagas that I don't mind being a little bit more expensive, because you actually kind of want to play it maybe on your 4th or 5th turn, just as you're starting to run out of cards in hand, and this is going to help refill your hand and keep you going maybe when your opponent's starting to run out of steam. I love that it basically on the final stage gives you the cards back that you discarded, plus any other cards that might be in your graveyard. Now, I will say, if you're playing a Spells Matter deck where it depends on the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard, that might not be preferable. But in a lot of other circumstances, I think it is. You can shuffle creatures you've lost back in, you can shuffle the cards you discarded back in, and you get the 2 of the 4 mana back that you spent to cast it. So I have this overall at a B-. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I disagree on this one, but mostly because I like getting my card draw. I think there's other options that you have for card draw. So I have this as a D plus, and I said my note. This might be a C minus. I don't think it's better because I do worry about my 4-drops being like a 4-drop do nothing. It does draw you cards. It does that over a couple of turns though. And the last one of adding the 2 blue is nice, but that's just a little added bonus, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I'd rather drawing be on my I impact something type cards, or have a way to, like the Island Cycler, to cycle it away if I don't care about that type of thing. So that's what draws me down a bit. Don't get me wrong, I'll play this when I need some card draw. But we'll see how it plays out. This definitely does, it reads like kind of draw four cards, discard two that you don't care about, and that does, sound good. And I guess I just wonder how that plays when you're being attacked to death in the meantime.
Sure. No, I could definitely see situations where this ends up in your hand and you have to make a choice to not play it because you're defending against an aggro deck or something along those lines. I think overall, I think this will find more uses than not. I think, yeah, the 4 mana to draw 4 cards and discard 2 that you don't care about. I think that's just a really good ability. Granted, again, it's over 2 turns. I think for me, what really makes it good though is you get 2 of that mana back on turn 6 in addition to all of your other lands. It allows you to play to potentially save up for those 2 turns and then go big on turn 6, or when 2 turns after you get it with some of those cards you drew. Make a big swing in the game, whether it's through some removal and attack, playing a couple of big creatures, something like that. I could particularly see this going good in like a blue-green combo with Scry, and then one of those big Ents or something like that, because you just get the mana to play it. So I mean, I still really love it, but I can see why you're risk averse to it. So we'll see how it plays
Yeah,
ultimately.
yeah, this will be a good one to watch, like kind of how the stats play out over the set.
Yeah.
Up next, we have Horses of the Bruinen. For 3 blue blue, you get a sorcery. Return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hands. Scry 1, the ring tempts you. If an unsummon is worth 1 mana, is 2 unsummons worth 5 mana?
At sorcery speed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I get that this effect becomes better tacking multiple things in one card, right? Like that can be a big swing. You pay 1, clear up multiple threats, and now you're clear to attack in or whatever. But I just don't buy it. I think it's too expensive for what you're getting, and with that, I have this as a D plus. What do you think?
I have it even worse. I have it at a D minus. I don't
Yeah.
think it's unplayable, but I think it's just bad. Like you said, 5 mana to return 2 target creatures, up to 2 target creatures. It at sorcery speed for me, that this would be a D plus for me if it was instant, and I would see no reason why it couldn't be for that cost. But that's just my perspective on it.
Yeah, in an aggro deck, which blue does seem like a support color. So I do think there will be some shells where you can go somewhat aggro and have blue be your support. It can sometimes clear the way for win these type of cards. That might be what they're going for with making this an uncommon. So that's why I had a hard time like putting this as like unplayable. And you didn't,
Sure.
so your D minus like fits right in there. But I'm not against what you're saying. Like I don't
Yeah.
like this
No.
card. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think it's borderline unplayable. I might give it a synergy grade of like a C minus in those circumstances where you're playing like red blue aggro with blue as a support color. But
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I still think there are probably better cards you can pick.
Yep.
So next up, and our last blue uncommon, we have Saruman the White and he's a blue card for some reason. For 4 colorless and 1 blue, you get a 4/4 legendary creature avatar wizard with Ward 2, and whenever you cast your second spell each turn, amass Orcs 2. So I think overall, I have this as a synergy C with amass decks, but I honestly don't really like it. I think it's expensive for what it is. It's never going to be your ring bearer because it's too powerful. And the ward, a 4/4 for 5 with ward 2 isn't particularly inspiring to me. But I suppose if you're playing that amass strategy and you have enough cards to cast 2 spells a turn, then okay, yeah, I can see it. But I think you're going to have a hard time keeping that up. What do you think?
Yeah, similar thoughts. I put this as a C minus though because this is a top end that can have some impact over the long term. 4 for 5, I don't love that. I do think Ward 2 might be a bit more valuable than you're giving it. It's pretty expensive to pay 2 more to do anything to remove this. And that ability can get out of hand playing your second spell each turn. But like we said before, I don't love this because I like my cards to have an impact right away. And this takes the setup of the second spell each turn. So yeah, that got me to a C minus.
Yeah, that's fair. I see. I think the best use of this is, not playing it turn 5 for 5 mana, but saving it a couple of turns and then immediately playing another spell and getting your max.
Yeah.
Right. And for that reason, I'm thinking that's not great. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be playing a 4/4 on turn 7. And I'm not sure. It has a lot of value out of that. The reason I said I didn't rate the Ward that highly is because I don't think this is a likely target. I tend to rate Ward fairly highly on good cards that I think are likely to be targeted by spells. I think this guy is unlikely to be a target. He's not going to be a ring bearer. He's essentially just a 4/4. I mean, if you start amassing like crazy, they're going to target your army instead and not him. Because if they can return your army or destroy your army, I mean, if the army's big enough, it's more valuable than a 4/4. So that's kind of why I think that the award is not too particularly great on this card.
I do think with the amount of draw and scry within blue that you'll be able to set up the second spell each turn fairly reliably. So I wouldn't discount that.
Sure.
This thing is a threat. I do think they will want to remove it, but it is a slow threat. And with that, it's hard to rate these high mana costed things too highly. You don't want too many of your top end threats. So
yeah, that's fair.
All right, that is it for our uncommons for blue. We have gone all the way through Wooburg at this point. Be sure to like and subscribe. Put a comment down below, ask any questions, we'll respond to it. Our next episode will be covering the rares and mythics, and that will close up the full set review of Lord of the Rings. So stay tuned for the next upcoming episode, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Yeah, bye.